What's going on, everybody? I'm Ernie, Blerd Without Fear. So, after the announcement of Captain Marvel and the 90s setting and the use they're going to be making of the Skrulls, I thought I'd do a little video. And we're going to go back and take a look at some of those characters who have been in the MCU, and we're going to determine whether or not they might be Skrulls. That being said, if you're not familiar with the Secret Invasion storyline that started back from 2008 to 2009, then I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of quick background. Long story short, the Skrulls decided that the only way that they were going to be able to take out Earth's mightiest heroes, subjugate, the human race under their boot, was not by open war. It was going to be through a secret invasion. Roll credits. In the secret invasion, they would abduct certain members of the Marvel universe and replace them with a Skrull. And the way the Skrulls work is that they can mimic a human being, and really just about anybody else for that matter, down to the minutia that you wouldn't even imagine that they'd be able to do. A Skrull is very easily capable of duplicating the powers of any one of Marvel's superheroes, and in a lot of cases can duplicate multiple superheroes within the same body. They can look, act, think, everything just like the person they abduct. But the whole thing was that everybody was a Skrull in Secret Invasion just about. It's easier for me to tell you who wasn't a Skrull than it is for me to tell you who was. But I don't want to get into that because that's a separate video. I'll do something about that later. We'll go more in depth with that. I promise. Let's get in these characters who I think are probably going to turn out to be Skrulls when Secret Invasion inevitably rolls around. My first pick, and I just want to go ahead and get this out of the way because this is the most obvious choice, Nick Fury. Nick Fury's been kind of absent lately. Since Winter Soldier, he's kind of been undercover. I'm not buying it. I feel as if anybody was going to be a Skrull, I mean, he wouldn't be the most shocking choice, but he would be one of the more painful ones. I mean, you got to think about it. He created the Avengers Initiative, and I know what you're probably thinking, why would he create the Avengers Initiative if the Skrulls secretly want to take over the world? That's the funny thing about Skrulls. If you read some of the side books within that crossover event, some of the Skrulls do start to really believe they are who they say they are. That's actually a part of the indoctrination, not just on the human side, but on the Skrull side. They show that these Skrulls get to a point where they're like, they don't just imitate the person, they believe they are that person. To the point that there's moments in Secret Invasion where Skrulls are revealed and they don't even believe it. Neither here nor there. But sometimes Skrulls just take the job way too seriously. And who other than Nick Fury to take the job too damn seriously? Next up on the list is going to be another kinda obvious one. I'm going to tip my hat towards Black Widow on this one. Of all the characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she is probably the least like her comic counterpart. I know that there's been a lot of rumor that they're going to kind of shuffle the deck a little bit after the 4th Avengers film, which is ultimately when a lot of those contracts for some of our original recipe Avengers to go ahead and head out the door. But I also think they're going to use Secret Invasion as an opportunity to maybe fix or maybe re-sculpt characters who maybe aren't quite like they are in the comics. To be fair, Scarlett Johansson does a great job playing Black Widow, but there's one of those things whenever I go back and read the comics and Black Widow is there, it's like, oh, yeah, sometimes I forget she's Russian. I'm not saying get rid of Scarlett Johansson. What I'm saying is have her turn out to be a Skrull and then have her come back in actual human Black Widow, and no one knows how to act around her because not only do they know that she's a diabolical heifer, but they also know she used to be a Skrull. Another one on my list is going to be Hawkeye. Hawkeye is another kind of oddball one because, he's the Avenger that everybody makes fun of, whether it's the characters in the MCU or it's the fans. No one gives Hawkeye the props he deserves. But the thing is, what if it's all an act? What if Clint Barton has been a Skrull this entire time? It wouldn't necessarily make the most sense, but it would make for the most interesting story because we've already seen Hawkeye's family, that he has a life, that he has something to lose. And even though technically he kind of, goes off the rails in Civil War and just kind of says, screw the family, I'm coming to help Captain America. I think it would be something interesting to see a character who you thought had real Earth ties come to find out he's an alien. Even more importantly, he doesn't really think he is one. And I think Jeremy Renner could really play it up. I mean, this would give his character a lot more depth than what was given in some previous films. Though in Civil War, in Avengers: Age of Ultron, he definitely got it. But I feel this would be another good turn for him. It could give him some more things to do, and keep it interesting. Now, this one is going to be kind of a weird one. Initially, I didn't want to put Captain America on this list, but I'm going to put him on here anyway. The thing is that Captain America's problematic. If he was a Skrull, then did it happen during First Avenger or after? Was it sometime when he was in the ice? Have we been dealing with the same Steve Rogers this entire time? And I think that's what makes for an interesting story. Characters that we absolutely positively believe in our heart of hearts is probably who they say they are. It makes it even more gut-wrenching with the fact that, Captain America and his bromance with Bucky, and it's just like, oh, wow, we've been, fighting to get together this whole time. We've been trying to get back to, good old-fashioned Captain America and Bucky adventures, and just like, oh, wow, Cap is a Skrull. And honestly, what better way to reveal it than maybe have Chris Evans take a dive in Avengers 4, and then all of a sudden, when he hits the ground, ultimately destroyed by Thanos, maybe he reverts back to being green. I mean, hey, it wouldn't be that hard a pill to swallow. That's technically how they discovered the Skrulls and the whole secret invasion plot. Not with Captain America, but with Elektra. Especially in the wake of comic book arcs like Secret Empire. It would be a really interesting thing to see Captain America as a Skrull. I mean, he makes a good bad guy. Even if they don't do it the way that I said, I mean, if they had him actually walking around being the leader of the Skrull invasion, it would be a thing to behold. Next up on my list is Ant-Man. No, not that Ant-Man. The other Ant-Man. Original recipe Ant-Man, Hank Pym. The reason why I say this is because I feel like the MCU missed an opportunity having Hank Pym in the series early on. I feel like you need a character like that. A guy who was originally a founding member of the Avengers, and even in the comics, is completely short-shifted, and it's a kind of a running gag with his character that he gets no respect. Especially since this was a plot point in Secret Invasion, Hank Pym being a Skrull makes a lot of sense. He could be the guy with the boots on the ground, dealing with human stuff, that side, because the Skrulls had a really impressive marketing campaign when it came to Secret Invasion. It was really impressive. I gotta give kudos to Marvel for that one. It was actually really interesting. It was a good time to be getting back in the comics. I would like to see Hank Pym get a little more screen time, and if it's as a bad guy, then why not? Especially once the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp are sussed out. We know that Michelle Pfeiffer's going to be in the film, so obviously they're going to go into the microverse. They're probably going to reunite the Pym family, unless, Michelle Pfeiffer's scenes are strictly relegated to flashbacks. I think it's a good idea. I mean, once again, going back to that, Hawkeye thing, talking about, getting the family back together, showing a character has ties and things to lose. Not to say that Scott Lang wouldn't be, the guy to look at, but honestly, I like Scott Lang being Scott Lang. It would probably hurt more with Scott Lang because he is such a likable character, but I feel like Hank Pym needs just a little bit more to do. Next up on the list, I'm going to throw Captain Marvel out there. And the reason why is because she's kind of an easy target. She's going to be fighting against the Skrulls in her first film, and it's going to take place during the 90s, which would make sense as to why no one in the MCU knows who the hell she is. Let's say in the finale of the movie, she goes down hard, she's fighting the Skrulls for everything she's worth, and I mean, she's taking it to them, and then somewhere down the road, something happens. Maybe it's something that happens off camera, and there's a switcheroo somewhere in there, but somehow, some way, we get a stinger showing Captain Marvel is not really who she says she is. Kind of pull one of those turn back to look at the camera deals with the flashing green eyes, or don't do that, Marvel. That would be really cheesy. It's only a good idea up here. Headcanon. Like what I was saying with Captain America is, maybe say Captain Marvel is somehow killed by Thanos or severely wounded or something, and then we get the reveal that, oh, she is not who we thought she was, and the real Captain Marvel has been abducted, and we get her out and get her back into the MCU. Now, I mean, granted, I think it'd be kind of shitty to bring in Marvel's first female solo movie and have her be a Skrull, but honestly, if you're gonna do it at any time, why not then? The final on this list, and man, this one makes more sense than anybody on this list, that's Iron Man. Think about it. Iron Man has been the worst enemy of the Avengers since day one. He's created all of his own enemies, even created all of the Avengers' enemies. And he also has been responsible for some of the biggest dick moves in the MCU. When they're sitting down at that table in Avengers Civil War and they're talking about the Sokovia Accords and Thunderbolt Ross is, by the way, Thunderbolt Ross totally calling him for a Skrull. Or maybe that whole thing about him having a heart attack was actually him becoming Red Hulk. Iron Man's created all these problems. They're sitting here talking about the Sokovia Accords, and everybody's feeling so bad about all the bad things they've done. Scarlet Witch, you do have a lot to atone for. However, so does Iron Man. Iron Man is the cause of most of these problems. Would it not make sense that he be the architect of the Skrull invasion? The person who's basically been softening the Avengers up so the Skrulls can come in and just clean house. Not to mention, Iron Man is probably the most beloved character in all of the MCU. We've had so much time with Tony. He was the first movie, for Christ's sakes. He's probably a Skrull. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and you let me know who you think is going to be a Skrull come time for Secret Invasion. I'd really appreciate it if you liked and shared this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can become a part of Earth's mightiest subscribers, and click that bell so you don't miss a single call to action. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.